Sure. So some of you may have met him and we waved to him earlier. Randy Romanski is our speaker today. He was announced as the Secretary-designee for Wisconsin Department of Agriculture Consumer Protection, which is, I don't know if it's fondly known as, but known as DATCP. So he was appointed by Governor Tony Evers in June of 2020. Prior to the appointment, he served as the DATCP Deputy Secretary since January 2019 and Interim Secretary since November 2019. He brings decades of experience in government administration and policy development to the department. He's had leadership roles at multiple state agencies, previously as DATCP's Deputy Secretary and Secretary under Governor Jim Doyle, working on issues such as farmland preservation, local foods, farm to school, and renewable energy. And he has also served as the executive assistant to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and Wisconsin Department of Transportation, which it sounds like is where he met George. So he's originally from Wisconsin Rapids and earned his bachelor's degree in political science from University of Wisconsin River Falls and his master's degree in public policy and administration from the Robert M. La Follette School of Public Affairs at UW-Madison. He resides in Monona, and I have also heard that he is a Rotarian or is looking to join a Rotary club. So hopefully you'll get a good experience from ours, Randy, but welcome today. And he's going to tell us about DATCP.
Thank you, Erin. And yes, I am a prospective Rotarian. What I was going to say, and I don't know if Keelani is on, but I also, this was many years ago now, but I was a youth Rotarian. So I got my appetite whetted pretty early in life, and I am now seeking potential home with a Rotary. So thank you for the invitation today. I've got a brief presentation, at least I think it's going to be brief. I'll be as brief as I can because it'd be great to have some time for some question and answers as well. So I do know that as members of this group, you are all committed to things like clean water, supporting local economies and the health of our communities. And hopefully one of the things I can convey to you today is that DATCP is as well. And you'll hear a little bit more about that. So I'm glad Erin mentioned DATCP. It is the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. We always make sure to say the end of that as well. Most people are familiar with the A in our acronym. It gets the most attention, and logically that's the case in a state like Wisconsin. Agriculture is a massive part of Wisconsin's economy. It generates $104.8 billion each year. And about 1 in 9 people working in our state hold a job related to agriculture. That's not just those who farm, it's those who work in food processing, distribution, transportation. It's also an important part of our state's heritage. Wisconsin's farms and agricultural businesses form the foundation of many rural communities across the state, but we have agricultural processing that goes on even in our most urban parts of our state. So as I mentioned, I don't want to forget about the TCP in our agency's name. Protecting consumers and ensuring fair trade in Wisconsin is a core function of what our department does each day. DATCP's role in this landscape is partly as a regulatory authority, but also as a resource connector. So I appreciate the chance to share a little bit more with you about each of those different roles today. So I'll walk through them. First, I'll give you an update. So how we serve the citizens of our state each day. Part of it starts through the Office of the Secretary. That's where the executive leadership team is, our communications team. Grace Atherton, who's joining us today, is our communications director, our legal team, and our policy team. In addition to the Office of the Secretary, we pursue our mission through 6 divisions. You may be surprised to learn that our largest division is the Division of Food and Recreational Safety. So this team inspects and licenses all food and recreational businesses in Wisconsin. They enforce and state food safety laws, and they respond to food recalls and foodborne illness outbreaks. They're responsible for what we sometimes call post-harvest agriculture. All the value that our producers put into growing crops and raising livestock can be lost if we don't have a solid food safety system in place. In short, what we usually like to say is they make sure the products you buy and the places you go are safe. Our next largest division is Trade and Consumer Protection. This is the division that helps ensure a fair marketplace by enforcing Wisconsin's consumer protection laws, educating consumers, and verifying the accuracy of scales and prices across the state. A good example of this one is they make sure you get a gallon of gas when you pay for a gallon of gas. They do much more than that, but that's the one that's the quick, easy explanation. The other 4 divisions of DATCP deal a little more closely with the world of agriculture. The Division of Agriculture Development works to support Wisconsin farmers and promote Wisconsin agriculture. If you've heard of the Wisconsin Farm Center or Allison Dairyland or something special from Wisconsin, this is where those programs are located. I don't want to assign her to something, but if you're ever interested, Allison Dairyland might be a good guest speaker for you, because she kind of serves as one of the ambassadors to the state of Wisconsin and has a wealth of information about the state as well. So there's a little plug for potentially having Alice join you. The Division of Animal Health works to protect animal and human health in Wisconsin by monitoring the movement of domestic animals and livestock in and out of the state. And they also respond to animal disease outbreaks and other emergencies. Let me give you an example to illustrate how important this division's work is. Somebody once explained it to me this way, and it's really like each animal living in Wisconsin has a passport. And the Division of Animal Health is charged with stamping that passport or checking the passport anytime that animal moves into the state or out of the state. And what many people don't know is that animals sometimes would have a passport book that's more filled with stamps than mine would be because they move around so much. This is the group of really dedicated professionals that spend their time tracking those animal movements to make sure they're safe and healthy. We also have a Division of Management Services that's responsible for agency operations, including IT, budget, human relations, and human resources, and lab testing. So this includes everything from hemp testing to pesticides and even food samples. And then our last division is the Division of Ag Resource Management, which works with counties and farmers and agribusinesses to make sure that there's responsible use of Wisconsin's land and water resources. Soil and water health are some of the foundational aspects and responsibilities of our agency. This is the group that works with the industry to make that happen. So now that I've taken you for a quick fly through our agency and our 6 divisions, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we serve Wisconsin farmers, agribusinesses, and consumers in different ways. And I guess I'll start by looking at the recency, which is COVID-19. Early on, Governor Evers recognized the essential nature of agricultural and food businesses in Wisconsin. Our agency quickly mobilized in support of those industries and started a series of weekly industry stakeholder calls with partners across Wisconsin. And this is dairy to grocery store owners to livestock producers and others. And we started off with phone calls that provided a really critical opportunity to share information and address challenges in the constantly changing environment of the early days of the pandemic. And we have, it was really interesting to see the Zoom bomber on the front end of this call, because, you know, you think back to the early days of the pandemic, those kinds of things when people figured out, oh, I can, and I don't know why people do those things, but I can jump into somebody's call and you know, make a ruckus or something. So we navigate those things along the way. Our first round of contacts with our stakeholders was conference calls, and some of those lines got kind of jammed up. So we evolved through that. We still have those calls now monthly and move them to Zoom calls just like this, so we can stay in touch about really important and critical things that are going on. Some of the other things we've been involved with, we work with Governor Evers, the Department of Administration, and the Wisconsin Emergency Management professionals to deliver 60,000 face masks to our stakeholders to help them protect their essential workforce. We partnered with the Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin and Hunger Task Force. Through that, we helped start something called the Wisconsin Dairy Recovery Program, which has purchased and delivered nearly 3 million pounds worth of Wisconsin dairy products and distributed to people in need. In March, Wisconsin's price gouging law was activated for the first time since it was enacted, and our Division of Trade and Consumer Protection staff mobilized really quickly to enforce and communicate with retailers as they responded to volatility in prices and consumer demand. We've pivoted a little bit in how we provide some services to our external stakeholders, and our food and recreational safety staff shifted to what we call focused food safety checks. So we have a regulatory component to what we do, but in some instances, because of the limitations of the pandemic and the impacts to some of our regulated industries, we went to a series of wellness checks with these licensees to make sure that they had what they needed to continue their essential operations, and also just to kind of establish the fact that we're still in contact with you, and when we get back to more normal operations, we will resume being in person. But we wanted to pivot with the industry and provide services together. Our Division of Agricultural Development also went virtual. They moved trade missions online and found new ways to connect with our international trade partners during the pandemic. The interesting thing about that is I was able to speak to, I think it was Chippewa Falls Rotary recently, like I'm speaking to you right now for the noon hour. And then later on that evening, I was able to join some Wisconsin businesses and interacting with Japanese buyers. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't able to do it virtually through a Zoom platform. I'd be able to do it, just wouldn't be able to do it in the same day. So our international team is worked to pivot how they provide services as well. And this is a fun thing I like to mention because I've got a State Fair Park executive board meeting tonight, but even the State Fair, which unfortunately wasn't held this year, but of course it was canceled for the health and safety of all, they quickly pivoted and they did some creative award-winning activities there. They did a fair food drive-through operation this summer, and more than 200,000 cream puffs were sold to hungry fair growers that way, so that they can get their cream puff fix since the State Fair didn't happen this year. Just so that's a little bit of what went on during the pandemic. So what I would say is, even when we're not navigating a pandemic, DATCP serves as a resource to our state in many other ways. Our sanitarians in our largest division, the Division of Food and Recreational Safety that I mentioned earlier, work really closely with local public health agents and business operators to help them comply with federal and state food safety requirements. So for us, this means not only taking enforcement action when there are problems, but maintaining communications so that we can help share ideas and develop solutions, even during the challenges of COVID-19. Our ultimate goal, I think, is the same goal as everybody else, which is keep everybody safe. And in working with our partners to the best of our ability, get voluntary compliance as opposed to enforcement. Our staff and the Wisconsin Farm Center answers calls and emails from farmers and their family members. So they provide a vital service during the pandemic and other times as well. They provide support and share resources on a range of issues like financial consultation, business transition planning, mediation, and access to mental health care. And on that note, I would just say clearly COVID-19 has had dramatic effects on all of us, whether it's a disruption in the supply chain, how we work, how we interact with others, can we travel to see relatives and friends? I mean, those are obviously hardships, but one of the things we've seen is there's a tremendous amount of mental stress in the world of production agriculture. There are a lot of components that enter into that, but the fact that you have to grow the crops and milk the cows, and a variety of other factors, and the impact of the economy, and in some cases the isolation. So our staff is on hand and available to help with that. And one last thing to mention here is our consumer protection hotline staff help Wisconsinites learn how to protect themselves from fraud and scams, understand their rights as consumers, and file a complaint for investigation if that's needed. I guess all this brings us back to DATCP's role. We strive to serve not just as a regulator, but as a resource. We're not here only to enforce the laws within our authority, but also provide information and facilitate connections between stakeholders with common interests and shared goals. One of the things I say is we typically don't have a great deal of extra funding to assist economically, but we do have the power to connect the dots, and that's what we try to do. So I guess our commitment to Wisconsin's agriculture industry is that we're going to continue to serve as the resource at the state level now and into the future. I guess our ask is that you support Wisconsin agriculture and our food supply chain by educating others about where food comes from and seeking out opportunities to buy from local producers, processors, and vendors. Our state's economic well-being depends on investments in our local infrastructure, and your dollar is one way that we can do that. I guess one thing I'll do if it's okay, and before I do the wrap up, is earlier there was the discussion about vaccines, and so we're the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, not the Department of Health Services. So I'm going to stay in my lane, but I can say that I do get frequent interactions with the Department of Health Services, and I spoke to Secretary Palm before she left for her new job in Washington, D.C. As the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health Services. And I think James Iliff, I think was the name on the screen when this discussion was going on, said something like, well, supply is an issue in Wisconsin and elsewhere. And I would just reiterate that from what I've been told by the Department of Health Services as they seek to coordinate this. In order to have a successful vaccine rollout in this substantial way, there's really three things needed. One is demand. Clearly, there is a demand for vaccines. One is the distribution system, and Wisconsin, like other states, has a system in place. And the third is supply. And that is really the challenge that Wisconsin and many other states are facing right now. Supply is the issue, and the way I heard the Department of Health Services explain it when this question came up is we aren't able to distribute what we don't have. So states are struggling to get that kind of resource from the federal government, is my understanding. So the reason I'm familiar with this is food and agriculture workers are essential workers, and they're very keen on trying to find their place in the vaccine distribution system. And so we try to collect information on their behalf. So they are included in 1B. I know today is the day that the vaccine is being distributed to people in a certain age group, and that's a good thing. That's progress. What I'll say is what I heard from the Department of Health Services last week is there is a plan, and it will just take some time to work through that. So I just wanted to share that, since that was a discussion that I caught on the front end, and that's what I know at this very moment. Again, any other questions beyond that, I would actually refer to the Department of Health Services. They have a group that's been working on this. The acronym is SDMAC. It's the State Disaster Medical Advisory Committee, and they have a website that provides some additional information for those who might be interested. So that's what I know about that. So I guess I'll just close my presentation here, and it looks like there's a little bit of time left for question and answers. Would be happy to do that. I hope after giving this quick summary, you have a little better understanding of what DATCP does and how we work each day to serve you and the community. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you so much. We'll put you in the